Everyone, and welcome to the Harkleroad-Adams channel. My name is Drew Hare. We have Matt Harkleroad and Chris Adams, our analysts. We are going to be recapping the 2020 NFL playoffs. We've already completed Wild Card Weekend, but before we go into the divisional round, first off, Matt, we've been kind of giving you a little bit of crap over the last couple of months about your Super Bowl picks and your love for Kirk Cousins. So after last week, after going 4-0 for Wild Card Weekend, and having Kirk Cousins lead an overtime victory in New Orleans, you get a little bit of bragging time. So it's all yours.
All right, well, I will take this, but I should clarify. I think I only went 3-4 in my pick because I think I hesitated too much, and I did take the Saints. So
there you go. Okay.
But I 3-4 otherwise, and I had a good feeling. I think, Drew, you were the person that mentioned maybe the Vikings would have a real shot against the Saints. So I guess you get that praise. But I will take, after years of haranguing, getting, poked and prodded over the years about my love for Kirk Cousins, him finally showing up in a big moment, making an amazing couple of throws, push off or not. No one was ever going to call that penalty, even if they did review it. But Kirk showed up in a big way when they needed him. And ultimately, that defense played out of their mind. Anybody that Saints offense for 13 points is, not much you can do about that. So
right, and that pass that he threw down to Thielen to get him inside the 5-yard line, that was an awesome pass at a high pressure moment, especially when coming off a play action, everybody was expecting Dalvin Cook to just see can they get into field goal range. Maybe they could just take a kick and then play some defense. But no, they played some fantastic play action all game long, and especially when it counted.
Yeah, and what's the one big knock on Kirk? I guess two big knocks on him. One was beating good opponents, check, and the other was deep ball, and check. Picture perfect deep ball. He took advantage of Lattimore being out of the game, went deep to Thielen, and perfect pass, perfect throw. I think Kirk Cousins is having a moment, guys.
That's the definition of a moment, especially when you come to play. Yeah, right. And Matt, also, your Titans pick, I know you changed it at the last minute, but you still changed it, and that still counts. So, you could really tell at halftime that the Patriots just did not trust what they were doing on offense. They just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and they had no answer for Derrick Henry, who almost looked like, like when you see a video of a kid that's at a D3 school and he should not be at a D3 school playing.
Right.
He was hitting those holes so hard. I expected there just to be injured players for the Patriots all day long, just getting beat by him. I mean, he was hitting those things at full speed, with no abandon, and always getting 6 yards a pop at least, and had a couple of big runs too. They had no solution for him. So going forward, if you can get any kind of production like that, if you can get to 100 yards against most teams with your number one running back, that's a good recipe for success. So I think there should be a lot of teams in the AFC, at least for sure, that should be a little afraid of these Titans.
Chris, how about you? I mean, is this the end of Tom Brady and of the Patriots as we know it?
I think it's too early to say that. It certainly looks that way, but you wanted to count Brady out before. But put it this way: it's certainly the end of the Patriots in this current how they look right now, right?
Right.
Because Josh McDaniels is maybe likely going to be gone. Brady, I still think he's going to be back there. I'm not sure where he's going to go. But the era or aura of superiority is gone with the Patriots now. Teams,
right?
They have been dominant, the last 20 years. But part of that is them making plays on the field, and part of the other side of it is teams just crapping the bed against them. And part of it's, you've seen it. You saw a couple years ago, Jacksonville had them on the ropes in the AFC Championship, and then just totally choked down the stretch. And I think part of that was
the first two months of this year, everybody was doing that.
Yeah, and now someone has finally broken through and beaten them. So I'm not going to say the Patriots are done for good, but they definitely, if they're going to take another shot at it with Brady and Belichick, they're definitely going to need to beef up the skill positions. around him, because I can't remember a Patriots team with this few skill players skill players out there and weapons for Brady. So
the skill players they do have are just aging. Between Brady, Edelman, breaking down.
And I want to echo with Matt. That was a great performance by the Titans. Vrabel with giving Belichick a taste of his own medicine down at the end was classic.
Oh, yes,
and then, just ending the game on a pick six by a former Patriot, nonetheless. Talk about putting an exclamation point on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, any comments or thoughts? I mean, it was a crazy wild card weekend. I mean, obviously, we haven't even talked about the Texans and the Bills game, which was just weird from pretty much. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the start of the second half was one of the weirdest things that I've seen in football in a long time.
Drew.
And it wasn't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, let me comment on Saints and Vikings game. I had this one wrong. I remember last week I said Saints, no problem. Saints were my Super Bowl pick. Obviously, that's not gonna come through. Come to fruition. Drew Brees looked old.
He did.
He really did. And again, him looking old is still better than most quarterbacks out there. But you could definitely see the fact that they just stalled in the second half. And he had a nice drive down there to kick a field goal at the end, and was hurt by just some bonehead plays by Kamara, who had a good game overall, but man had some brain cramps there on that last drive. So maybe blew a chance to possibly win the game. And then if Cousins doesn't make those plays, I mean, we don't know that Brees couldn't have driven them down the field. So. I think the Saints, my initial prediction was the Saints were going to win the Super Bowl and then Brees was going to hang them up. I don't know. Obviously, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Brees hasn't really talked a lot about retirement. I know his contract's up. But I think the Saints will be okay, whether Brees comes back for one more shot or he retires and they re-sign Bridgewater. I think there's enough talent there. I mean, the season that Michael Thomas just had, still got Kamara, some other players on the defense. Jared Cook had a nice first season there. I think the Saints are going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think the only explosive plays they really had in that game were Taysom Hill doing things what those were all over the place. Whether it be throwing the ball on a couple of that really nice deep ball he had, plus a couple of run plays, receiving the ball. He's an interesting weapon to have. He's not going anywhere, I don't think. So I agree with you. I don't think the Saints are in dire straits or anything, but I mean, that game was fantastic. We already talked about we didn't talk yet about the Texans Bills games. You mentioned it, but getting into that, I mean, that game was so much fun too. And Deshaun Watson was just, I mean, there's no way they get even close in that game without Deshaun Watson having a Superman-like performance, and he had it. And I don't know if he can keep that up, especially going against, and we'll talk about the next round later, but, that play where he just rolls out of two defenders coming in to get him at once.
It was ridiculous.
There's maybe the two guys in the NFL that can maybe make that play, maybe. So maybe one or two others get lucky and do it once. But he seems to pull things out like that. I mean, I think I said one of the keys to that game was whether or not they could keep Deshaun off of his back, and they didn't, and they still managed to win. I mean, 7 times in that game, and they still end up winning just because he's dynamic enough of a player to keep them in when they should be out.
And he was very average for most of the game, but then, as the great quarterbacks do, made big plays when you needed him to down the stretch. He was phenomenal when he needed to. Also, give a little love out to DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt coming back with a couple big plays. I mean, that was a game. That game was won by the Texans stars. Their 3 best players came up and made plays when they needed to.
Yeah. I think that it'll be very interesting to see Josh Allen's progression next year. I mean, he really, really struggled. I mean, he caught a pass that was probably the biggest duck I've ever seen from a non-quarterback from that John Brown. But he caught it. That's still a touchdown. But man, and maybe just some additional retooled weapons. Get another receiver outside of John Brown, move Beasley down to more like being a slot third wheel. Move John Brown down to like number 2, but whether it's a T Higgins or somebody else, and we'll get into the draft in the near future. But it'll be very interesting to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, I thought Allen played a pretty good game overall until the end, when it just looked like the moment was a bit too big for him. But even in that situation, he had a chance there. What no one's talking about was the kind of idiotic decision on Bill O'Brien to go for it on 4th down there rather than trying to punt them and pin them deep, giving the Bills a chance to drive down for a field goal. And you got a guy like Allen who can chuck it deep. He's got the arm for a Hail Mary. They almost called that out there in the end of regulation. But ultimately, as I said in the last video, I was kind of unsure about that game, but said I'll take Deshaun Watson over Josh Allen, and that proved to be the difference.
Yeah, I think so too. So the one last game for us to talk about from Wildcard Weekend, the Seahawks and the Eagles. I mean, obviously, I think when the Eagles, when Wentz goes down and Josh McCown comes in, as well as he tried to play in his first playoff game, there's just the Seahawks just ground them down. And I don't know what else you guys want to add to that, but I mean, once that game went down, once he went down, the game was over. Yeah,
this was certainly the least compelling of the 4. When I didn't give the Eagles much of a shot going into it, even with a healthy Wentz. And then when he went down, it was pretty much over. Although I will say, despite the fact that you had Wentz hurt, you had most of the skill position players hurt on the Eagles, it was still a 1-score game until pretty late into it. Now, I don't think anybody thought that the Eagles really had a chance. But I wonder, is that a concern for Seattle moving forward, right? Is this going to be a situation of, where they just go the next week and like, wow, we kind of dodged a bullet there. We'll get our stuff together for the next game. Or did the Eagles expose something there?
They still really couldn't even – I mean, Seahawks really couldn't even run the ball. I mean, DJ, Metcalf had 160 yards, but the Eagles defense has just been terrible against the pass all year. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think that game, when you watched it, it never really felt in doubt. But again, I think we go back to, we were just talking about coaching decisions for the Texans. The decision to kind of start going for it on 4th down with 6.5 minutes left in the game where you're down by 8 points seemed like a team that didn't think that they could move the ball. And yet they kept moving the ball. Like they kept getting into field goal range, getting good possessions. I don't know how that game changes if they kick that field goal at that point. And then, the Seahawks weren't moving the ball at that point. They were out of their own end. They weren't doing anything to threaten you because, you're right, they couldn't run the ball except for that one amazing beast mode run that they had for the touchdown. I mean, DK Metcalf was the star of that game. Looked like a man among boys out there at times, and that's just not looking just as biceps. But as a freak of nature kind of guy, and he had that kind of game. But I'm with you, Chris. I don't know if I saw anything that would scare me if I'm the Packers coming into next week out of the Seahawks at all. I mean, you've got Russell Wilson. You knew that was going to be out there. You knew he was going to come into your stadium if he came in, and he's a threat. But I think that offense doesn't look great. The defense played well enough. I don't know how good you can say they played when the Eagles kind of kept getting chances with McCown throwing the football to no wide receivers. And
they had the ball on the 5-yard line or 6-yard line right there.
I don't. If I'm the Seahawks in general, I'm a little nervous going into this week.
Yeah. Well, are you guys ready to move on to the division games?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and start with that one. I think it's really fascinating. I mean, obviously, you're going to talk about between the Seahawks and the Packers, just two of the elite quarterbacks and the visible faces of the NFL between Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we've talked about it previously, that the way that the Packers are winning games, running the ball, not turning the ball over. And I think that's especially being at home. If they're able to continue to establish the run, and then Aaron Rodgers is essentially just does what Aaron Rodgers does, doesn't turn the ball over, makes a few plays here, does his best Watson impersonation, gets out of those, and then makes a nice throw. I mean, I still think the Packers are probably going to win that game, but we've seen Russell Wilson do a lot of things in the past, and maybe it's another week where he does it.
Yeah, to me, I mean, like I said, I don't think I saw anything out of the Seahawks that would scare me. If I'm the Packers, I'm rested up. I'm feeling pretty good looking at my matchup. They're coming into our house. Going into before this week happened, I was kind of looking forward to the matchups that could be. I was like, man, the Seahawks Packers game looked great on paper. Now I don't feel that way. I think the line came in for this one was the closest line of any of them, I think, at like 7. But everything's like a 9-point right now, I think, or somewhere near there. That kind of feels right across the board to me. But I think a couple of the other teams, maybe especially the AFC, where those games look like they could be a little scary for the team, for the home team. Whereas, if I'm the Packers and I had to pick one of the 4 teams that made it through wild card weekend, maybe I'm picking Seattle at this point, which is crazy to think before that week happened. And I think it's a bad performance, and maybe not making too much out of it, but just looking at the way that team's construed right now, there's not a lot to scare you.
Yeah.
Right.
I checked the forecast. It's like a high of 25 in Green Bay this weekend. So, it's going to be cold, which that always, the plays to the home team there, especially with the Packers, what they do with the strong running game, and also Aaron Rodgers. I mean, both quarterbacks have the ability to throw the ball through the wind, so that shouldn't be an issue here. But, Rodgers, I think, could uncork the deep ball. I'm going to go with the Pack for all the reasons Matt said.
Yeah. The Seahawks need to establish the run, whether that's with Homer, whether that's with, Lynch. If they don't do that, I think Jair Alexander can lock up, DK Metcalf. I mean, famous last words, we'll see. But, I mean, the Packers defense is legit. And, they're going to have a lot more guys to cover, essentially what, between Metcalf and, I
also think Metcalf caught the Eagles by surprise a little bit. Rookie had a couple nice games during the regular season, but really, didn't really have a breakout year, and then just came there and exploded, and then kind of established himself as a go-to target. So I think the Packers will be ready.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. Let's move on to the other NFC game, which I think is a really mirror image game between the Vikings and the 49ers. I mean, talk about just like you don't know what you're going to get from the quarterback. They want to run the ball all the time. They have really good defenses. This, I think, is going to be – I think this is going to be at least my favorite game of the division round. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I like this matchup a lot. I think going into it, you look at Kirk Cousins, you think there's a question mark on Kirk Cousins. If there's a question mark on Kirk Cousins, there's a huge question mark on Jimmy Garoppolo. So if we're talking about, apple to apples here, what each team can do, they look very similar. What they're good at, what they struggle with. And you kind of look and you say, okay, what's an X factor for, San Francisco? Where could they get some production that you're not expecting it? And, Emmanuel Sanders had a pretty good season since he's been there. But you look across the field and you say, oh, Thielen, Diggs, that's a little more weaponry. That, in the past game, if it's a run, if they can get away with running the ball, 40 times, it could be either team's game. They both can play that way if they want to. This one I think is going to be real fun. I'm with you. The 9-point line seems a little ridiculous to me.
That seems way high.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see it. This one's a little more intriguing to me. I think, just looking at, you got to give San Francisco the edge just on looks, but I was really impressed with, the Vikings this past week, and I'd be a lot more scared than they probably were once they saw that victory go down.
So you gonna take the Niners, Matt, or you gonna take the Vikings?
My gut says I should take, or my brain says I should take the 49ers. but I think I'm going to go with my gut this one, and I'm gonna say the Vikings win again. I doubted Kirk too many times. That one time, I doubted.
Chris, how about you?
I mean, I think the Vikings are one of the better 6 seeds we've seen in recent years. I mean, they won 10 games. Often that's enough to win a division. Not in this year's loaded NFC, but I mean, Dalvin Cook looked fully healthy. And they're
that's huge.
A whole other weapon. If you look at skill position talents, quarterback, slight edge to Cousins. Garoppolo had a very nice year, but this is the first time he's been in the playoffs. Kirk again doesn't have a ton more playoff experience, but he has the big win from last week. So slight advantage there. Dalvin Cook is better than anybody that the Niners have at running back. Now, I know the Niners deploy a running back by committee. That's pretty darn impressive. But Cook's better than any one guy they have. Diggs and Thielen better than any of the receivers. Emmanuel Sanders, Dante Pettis, any of the receivers there in San Francisco. Kittle is better than Kyle Rudolph, but Rudolph is a pretty darn good player. So it's not a huge advantage there. Defense, the San Francisco has a better defense, but yeah, I mean, this one's going to be tough. It's hard to not. I really want to pick the Vikings in this game, but I think I'm just going to go with the Niners, if for no other reason than to just be different from Matt.
Well, I think it's a smart choice too. I think I was more likely to go out on a limb, so I took the Vikings.
But I would not be surprised at all by a Vikings win, and no way in hell do the Niners cover.
Okay, that's fair. I think we're setting up for. I think every year you always see like a 5 or 6 seed always push a 1 or a 2 seed every single year, and sometimes
do we though? Last year the number ones and numbers 2s dominated. So
yeah, well, okay, last year, but like in years past, like we have seen it happen. Like the Steelers went into Kansas City a couple years ago, and it's I'm thinking it's going to be the Vikings are going to win. I'm going to go with that one.
Ooh,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be funner, right?
All right, well, let's shift gears to the AFC games. Let's start with Titans-Ravens. Obviously, do we even know if Mark Ingram's going to be playing or not? And at the end of the day, is it going to matter?
So I'm going to say,
what do you think?
Earlier we were talking, Matt said that the Packers could pick any team they wanted to play still in the playoffs. They probably would pick the Seahawks. I'm going to say that, if you ask John Harbaugh, which team is he the most scared of playing in around here?
Is you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Did you lose me?
I've got Chris. I don't have Drew.
Drew's frozen.
Yeah, Drew is definitely frozen. He's back now. He's back.
Can you hear us?
Okay.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
I was saying, I bet if you gave John Harbaugh truth serum and said the team that he probably does not want to play is the Tennessee Titans.
That's fair.
They're on a roll. They've just had a huge win. Although the other argument is that, maybe that Patriots game was their Super Bowl and they're going to just run out of gas here, which could happen, but I'd be surprised. I think Vrabel's pushing all the right buttons right now. Matt talked before about Derrick Henry. I mean, that's a team who can match the Ravens in the running, keep Lamar Jackson off the field. In the offense, that's the best way to defend him is keep him off the field. Look to take their shots with Tannehill, use their all-pro punter, and make it a ground-and-out field position game.
Yeah, I think if you look at this one, the Ravens have been exceptionally good at getting off to fast starts. I don't think this Titans team is a team that can come back from a 2-touchdown deficit. It's 3-score deficit early, and something gets out of hand early, a turnover happens. They're looking at down 17-0 or something. Right. I don't think this is a team that grinds its way out of a hole. They've got to get out. They've got to start good. They've got to get that ground game going right off the bat. The way those Titans, that defense the Patriots had was great against the run. Was great defense all around. And Henry and that offensive line made him look bad. So if I'm the Ravens, I'm real worried about that. If they couldn't stop them, we're not going to do a whole lot better. And they've got to, and they have to keep them from chewing up 7 minutes of drive if they want to do what they're supposed to do and walk away with this game.
Yeah, I was going back the last time the Ravens lost to Cleveland back in September. Nick Chubb went off and ran all over them. So I think that'll be the formula is all Henry all the time.
Yeah, I think Marcus Peters, I mean, obviously his acquisition has just changed how that defense plays. You know, they're allowed to be a little bit more aggressive. They can play more guys up near the line of scrimmage and essentially just say, okay, Marcus Peters, if anything gets over past us, then you go break it up or pick it off or take it back, whatever. Yeah, it feels like this game is like going to feel like a running clock going on. Like this game feels like, you know, like a 17-14 or like, you know, 21-20 type game where it was, you know, I don't know. I'm not really sure I have a good feeling. I feel like Baltimore is going to win, but I'm not really like feeling.
Yeah, I think the easy money is on taking the Ravens here, and maybe not to cover. But again, I think if there's one team out there that can completely blow the team they're playing away, and maybe the Packers can, but it's not really their MO. I think the Ravens can walk into this game and put up a ton of points real quick and blow the doors off this team. But if I'm Harbaugh and if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm a little more nervous than some other, you know, if they had the Texans, I don't think they'd be nervous at all going into this week. And that's not a knock on them. I just think the game plan that the Titans can put together is a little scarier for Harbaugh. That said, I still think the Ravens take this game. I think it's going to be close, but I would not be shocked if the Ravens walk out of there by 3 touchdowns, if they can get off to a jump early.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, we can see them put up a lot of points really quickly. And like I said, if it starts to snowball really, really early, yeah, the Titans are just not built to come back from that. Go ahead, Chris.
My pick.
Your pick?
Yeah, I'm gonna make my
pick.
pick.
You're fine, Chris.
So I'm gonna go on the I'm gonna go out on the limb right here. I went with the safe pick in the NFC. I'm gonna take the Titans here. I'm gonna say the Tannehill Vrabel Henry story keeps going for at least one more week.
I'm for it.
I like it. I like the boldness of these videos, man. I like it. All right, let's shift gears to Texans and the Chiefs. So these two teams played a couple weeks ago. I think the Texans actually ended up beating the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. So are we seeing, you know, the Chiefs? You know, we've talked about Andy Reid off of bye weeks, and obviously he's got a bye week here. He's just awesome, just based on the game plan, and the team comes out to play and execute. How are you guys feeling, Matt? What do you think? Chris, go ahead.
Okay, I think the Chiefs win comfortably. I look at what happened in the first half of the Texans game or the Texans-Bills game last week. Yes, Deshaun Watson was amazing at the end of the game, but if Buffalo converts earlier in that game and gets a few touchdowns instead of field goals, and is up, 24-0 instead of 16-0, then, Deshaun probably doesn't have time to make that play. And I don't think the Kansas City offense is going to be settling for field goals.
No.
Also, I think Pat Mahomes gets rid of the ball a lot quicker than Josh Allen. He's a quicker decision maker, can let it loose. I think that will neutralize J.J. Watt's impact a little bit. So I'm going Chiefs in this one. I'm not going to say a blowout, but I'm going to say like 31-21 or something like that.
Okay.
Comfortably.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Chris on this one. I think the Texans are lucky they got a win against Buffalo. Not lucky to say. I mean, they played a game, especially in the second half. But they should have been, like I said, Chris put the nail on it. If they had scored more points in the first half, there's no chance they come back. So if Buffalo had scored more points, and they had the opportunities to do so, they just didn't execute. Whereas I think Mahomes doesn't give those opportunities up. Andy Reid game plans and doesn't give those kinds of things up. I think the Kansas City's kind of been a Jekyll and Hyde team, but they've been a little bit better towards the end of the season. I know that Texans game wasn't too long ago, but yeah, I just feel like this one seems, like the one that could end up more likely being, 15-point scoring game than any other ones on the. I also think the Packers win easily, but that one should be a little more intriguing, or could be a little more intriguing than this one. To me, this one seems a little meh.
Yeah, it's really thing to hear. It's really weird to hear a game featuring Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes be kind of meh. But I could see where you're gonna go with that. Yeah. All right, guys. Any final division round games? Any topics that we might have skipped? Do you guys want to jump back to?
I just hope we get another week like we did last week.
I was just about to say there's no chance we get a week like last weekend. So, maybe a little more optimism coming out of Chris than me. But yeah, it was so good. There's no way they can top it. But here's hoping they try.
Yeah, I think all teams are going to try. Before we let you all go, let's talk a little bit about coaching carousel. So we started when we last talked. I think there were 3 openings left. Now we're down to 1 opening left.
Well, there were 3 openings, but then Dallas officially became an opening.
Yeah, so Dallas obviously officially rolled with McCarthy. Today we had the Carolina Panthers agreeing to a deal with Baylor coach Matt Rule, and then also
a crazy deal.
7 years. Oh, that's an insane and a ton of money too. And then the Giants getting Joe Judge, who's the wide receiver and special teams coach from the Patriots. I think he's also 38 years old. So we're here doing these videos, and he's coaching an NFL team. That sounds about right. So the only team that's currently left as of right now are the Cleveland Browns. It sounds like they're going to have their choice. They have McDaniels, and if they're going to go out,
whatever. Yeah, a lot of coordinators have come into the building so far. And we forgot to say McCarthy down there in Dallas now too. I think if you look at it, the Dallas job was the best job out there on paper, assuming that you can get along with Jerry Jones. That was the best job on paper. And I think they got the guy that probably was most coveted to go there. Besides, still don't really understand why Rivera wanted to go to Washington so bad. But I mean, I think he had any pick, that would have been one of the last places I would choose. But maybe they were the first person to give an offer, and he just wanted to take. The Judge hiring's a little weird to me. It seems a little rushed. No one was. I didn't even hear any rumors about anybody. About him being interested. Anyone being interested in him. It seems kind of strange, especially when you've got the offensive coordinator for the Patriots still out there as an available candidate. You jump and get the wide receiver coach of. Someone remind me if the Patriots wide receiver group was fantastic this year. Were they? No, okay, that's right, they were. So it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And then again, I think I mentioned it already. The Panthers hire is just, man, you're going all in, 7 years, $61 million for a guy who was coaching Temple 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, for 38-year-old coach for Joe Judge, I mean, if you're not going to go with the, to go with the Belichick and Saban tree, that's not a bad combination to come from. It's not too bad.
So my thoughts on those. McCarthy, there's not much to say. Good coach, good fit. That's it. That was kind of a no-brainer. Joe Judge. On surface, I like the idea of special teams coaches becoming head coaches because like John Harbaugh was in special teams. As a special teams coach, you come in because Judge also was wide receiver and special teams coach. Special teams coach, you can come in and be a CEO and not worry about obsessing over the offense or the defense. You can bring in good coordinators. So I like that. But, man, it's an inexperienced special teams coach. And that Joe Judge won't be a good coach or won't be a good coach someday. But maybe for the Giants, they figure they're still a rebuilding team. They have a young quarterback. young running back, not a ton of expectations there yet, so maybe they figure they want someone who can grow along with them. Interestingly enough, Rule had been the guy who had been linked to the Giants for a long time in this process, and the Panthers kind of came out of nowhere and grabbed him. So, new owner there in Carolina, looking for some stability. I can give credit to guys who – there's something to be said for guys who can win without a ton of talent. So winning at Temple and then taking over a depleted Baylor team and also kind of installing some culture there after the disaster that was before him off the field. So there's definitely some good leadership qualities there. But, yeah, I mean, when I woke up this morning, I did not expect that those two hires would be made today. And the Browns, in spite of themselves, seem to be in a catbird seat right now. I mean, those were two guys who hired who were not even really – I know they talked to Rule and he wasn't interested, but they weren't even mentioning Judge. So, whether it's McDaniels or Kevin Stefanski or, Robert Saleh or Greg Roman.
Schwartz. Yeah,
Jim Schwartz they're interviewing tomorrow. They're going to get their pick of whoever they want from who's available. So,
yep. I'll say, so we'll be doing a recap of the division games next week ahead of the championship games. We'll obviously see where the coaching carousel lands for the Browns. Any final thoughts before we end for this week, guys?
Yeah.
No, let's hope they pick somebody that wants to be there and that they'll keep for a year as a Browns fan. More than a year, maybe let them go maybe 2 years, 3 years. And maybe, pick a GM that wants to work with the coach or something.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Maybe these like small little things that everybody else seems to get right occasionally.
Right.
The Browns can never seem to get right. So let's hope that's my one final shot for this is let's hope that the Browns can do something that's halfway intelligent.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, competence is good in most for at least 31 of the 32 NFL teams. So. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and finish up. So, like I said, we'll be back next week. We'll recap these games ahead of the championship games. So, for Drew Hare, for Chris Adams, for Matt Harkleroad, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Be sure to subscribe.
Yeah.